Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Delhi Township Board of Trustees meeting for March the 30th, 2016. We'll start the evening with a moment of silence. Tonight's moment of silence is dedicated to the veterans, both those serving and those who have served, with special note that yesterday was Special Recognition Day for the Vietnam veterans. So if we'll have that moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, motions for consideration. Mr. Luby.
Motion 2016-42, approve the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting held on March 9th, 2016, and dispense with the reading.
I move motion 2016-042 to approve the minutes on March 9th, 2016.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-43, approve bills for payment.
I move motion 2016-043 to approve bills for payment.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-44, approve the payment of overtime for pay period ending March 15th, 2016.
I move motion 2016-044 to approve the payment of overtime.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-45, acknowledge the receipt of the request for continuation of the parking agreement at the Community Senior Center from Mount St. Joseph University and approve a one-year renewal term as outlined in the agreement from June 1st, 2016 to May 31st, 2017, with an increase in rent of 2%, with all other terms being identical in the lease agreement from the initial term as approved by the Board of Trustees by Resolution 2015-163 on May 13th, 2015.
I move motion 2016-045 for the continuation of the parking agreement at the Community Senior Center from Mount St. Joe University.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-46, designating Lori Stutt as a township employee to attend on April 1st, 2016, on behalf of all elected officials, the required 3 hours of public records training approved by the Ohio Attorney General and mandated by Substitute House Bill 9 of the 126th Ohio General Assembly.
I move motion 2016-046 for Lori Stutt to attend as the township employee.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-47, approve the fiscal officer to complete the Ohio Division of Liquor Control form, not requesting a hearing for the D1 liquor permit class for Yug and Parth Corp., DBA Delhi Liquor at 5193 Delhi Pike, Cincinnati, Ohio, in Delhi Township.
I move motion 2016-047 to approve the fiscal officer to complete the Ohio Division Liquor Control form.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-48, approve the exception to Delhi Park rules allowing fishing at a volunteer fishing event on Saturday, April 2nd, 2016, from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. for recruitment and organization of volunteers, review of lake rules and regulations, operational procedures, and organization for fishing events during 2016.
I move motion 2016-048 to approve the exception to Delhi Park rules allowing the fishing at the volunteer fishing event.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-49, approve the Parks and Recreation Department to submit multiple grant applications to Home Depot Community Impact Grant for $2,500, Walmart Community Grant for $2,500, and the Kroger Company Foundation for $10,000. No matching funds required, but all grant funding awarded for play equipment will be utilized in combination with the Civic Association donation for the Civic Association Playground Expansion Project.
I move motion 2016-049 to approve the Parks and Recreation Department to submit multiple grant applications.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-50, accept the voluntary resignation of Stephen G. Duffy, part-time firefighter/paramedic, effective March 22nd, 2016.
I move motion 2016-051 5-0 to accept the voluntary resignation of Stephen G. Duffy.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2016-51, approve the hiring of Daryl M. Williamson as a part-time seasonal park relations officer at a rate of $12 per hour, effective April 1st, 2016.
I move motion 2016-051 to approve the hiring of Daryl Williamson.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, before we do presentations, I just want to note that we do have a guest in the audience. Cody is here from Troop 350 from Shiloh, working on his citizenship badge. So welcome, Cody. All right, presentations this evening. First, we have the Parks and Recreation presentation by, is it Josh or Joshua?
Either one.
Josh Torbeck, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Let me kick it off. Don't want to step on Josh, but Joshua. She teased you. She got you good on that. This began the conversations. This is about the funding of the park, and this has been ongoing conversations. Actually, we ran a park levy back in 2013. A lot has changed. I think everybody knows that. A lot has changed organizationally, leadership. Most of the Board of Trustees have changed. Well, all of you have changed. Cheryl was here as fiscal officer. So a lot has changed. We had conversations during the budget hearings this past budget season. What was that? November. We very well stressed about how the budget is impacting the general fund and deficit spending where it's causing the general fund to go down because of the park subsidy that we're providing. So this, we had said that we'd come back to the board early in the year to address, provide more information and have a recommendation of where do we go from here. So this is, Josh and I have been working a couple weeks, and Josh has really been doing a good job at the presentation and just back and forth on a couple changes here and there, but he's done a really good job. And I think the information that we will provide you tonight will help not just the Board of Trustees with decisions, but the public in general to understand what all is involved in the park. We're going to do more than just numbers, raw numbers, but also show the services and what we recommend in services as well that need to be changed for the future. So with that, Josh, take it away.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, trustees. I'm going to do an overview of the park, so some of it might be stuff you already know, but it'll give you a good background on where we're at and lead into where we're going. Some park and recreation facts. Currently, we manage about 150 acres of parkland, most notably Delhi Park, but also Floral Paradise Gardens, Story Woods, 5 Points, Veterans Memorial, Spring House, Bender Mountain, the Delhi Township Cemetery, and recently purchased Cleves Warsaw Hillside property. What some people might not know is we offer maintenance and landscape duties for other township properties as well. The police department, fire department, public works building, the administration building, several Delhi Township right-of-ways, various green spaces such as the Delhi Pike Gazebo and the benches, the new Welcome to Delhi Township signs, and the Shore Avenue drainage area, which is a collaborative effort with Public Works. So who is the Parks Department? Currently, we're 5 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees, 9 seasonal employees, 7 custodians who pretty much run our events at the Senior Center and the Lodge. And then in 2015, we had about 40 volunteers who donated about 850 hours of their time. Significant help for us. Without them, we'd be behind for sure. What goes on in Delhi Parks? Events, programs. Each year we have about 350 events at the Lodge and the Community Center. Those numbers continue to grow. We're home to local associations such as the DBA, DAA, Delhi Historical Society, and many others. We have over 200 shelter reservations a year. We just added fitness classes and additional after-school programming. We have weddings at Floral Paradise Gardens. Most notably, we have over 2,800 boys and girls youth baseball and softball practices and games. 500 adult softball games, 100 youth football practices, 200 youth soccer practices. We introduced lacrosse in 2015. Our summer programs, garden tours, home to the annual skirt game. 2016, you'll see rugby for the first time in the park. Our bicentennial celebration, obviously, and 6 fishing events, which is up from 1 2 years ago. What facilities do we manage within our parks? The Glenn Carter Lodge, the Delhi Community Center, 9 baseball and softball fields, 1 athletic field, which is mostly used for football, soccer, and lacrosse, 2 soccer fields, 6 shelters, and 1 spray ground. Additionally, we have 3 playground areas, 2 at Delhi Park, 1 at Story Woods, 2 tennis courts, skate park, 5 outdoor restroom facilities, 2.25 miles of paved walking trails at Delhi Park, over 2 miles of natural trails at Story Woods, 1.1 miles of natural beautiful trails at Bender Mountain, and obviously Clearview Lake. Some of our more well-known facilities, such as Floral Paradise Gardens, has a working greenhouse, themed gardens. A lot of the plants, the trees, the shrubs you see in the township are grown right there, either within the greenhouse or on property. It's an amazing resource for us. The community center came under supervision and maintenance of the Parks and Recreation Department in 2013. In 2014, the expenditures were moved to the Parks and Recreation Department. Currently, there's about 200 active members. I believe the numbers are actually more than that, but they have 200 that steadily come. And they're by contract in there Tuesdays through Fridays. It's open for reservations in the evenings and weekends, anything from weddings, birthday parties. Our new partnerships with RTR Fitness and ICANN Gymnastics are both held either in the parking lot or at the facility as well. The Glenn Carter Lodge, historic, famous, whatever you want to call it, was opened in October of 1959. It hosts about 250 events. It's definitely our busiest facility. There isn't 2 days that go by that we don't at least have one event going on there, whether it's a business meeting, a local organization, birthday party. It's definitely filled 7 days a week. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. These are some accomplishments, things that have been done in the park over the last 10 years. I'm going to kind of read them off, but I think you kind of lose track of everything that's really been done over the last 10 years, so we're just going to go through them pretty quick. 2005, the construction of the greenhouse. 2006, the opening of Floral Paradise Gardens. The first football game at the athletic field. The acquisition of Bender Mountain. 2007, the opening of the skate park. Opening day of Seton's home softball field. Establishment of the Delhi Veterans Memorial Park. 2008, the acquisition of Clearview Lake. The renovation of ball fields 5 and 6. In 2009, built the Floral Paradise Gardens gazebo. 2010, installed walking trails around Clearview Lake. 2011, Field 1 renovation and remodel of the lodge. 2012, restored the walking paths. The 5 Points restoration, construction of the Floral Paradise Gardens restroom, the community center remodel, and added irrigation to Fields 1, 2, and 3. 2013, resurfaced the tennis courts and add fencing around them. New backstops and fencing on Fields 2 and 3. 2014, there was the installation of erosion control matting at Clearview Lake. Updated and replaced playground features at Delhi Park. Got a new truck and equipment for snow removal. Upgraded infrastructure by moving some electric underground. 2015, we installed new swings at Delhi Park and Story Woods. New fencing around the skate park and the maintenance garages. Renovation of the senior center bathrooms. In 2016, I think, which will make a huge difference to the parks, we're planning on repaving the whole entire park, and I think it's really going to make a huge difference. We're going to dive into the numbers here. Here's a history. It's a 5-year history, and then a 6-year of what we're currently in, 2016. If you go down the list, you'll see the transfer in line item. That is the subsidy that we have received from the general fund. So at the bottom line is the total without that subsidy. So that's really the revenue that the parks generates without help from the general fund. Included in that number is the $8,000 that we get reimbursed by the general fund for taking care of the non-park facilities. On the expenses, the first year I think is important to note is 2014, and we've discussed this in the past, is you'll see the bottom line on the total there took a dramatic jump from 2013 to 2014, and that's attributed to the introduction of shared services and then the fact that the community center expenditures were moved into the Park and Recreation Department. If you look at 2015, you'll notice that there was actually a decrease in expenses, and we think that was due to the cost-saving efforts that we put into last year, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit further in the presentation, but the budget for 2015 was actually more around the $711,000, so you can see that we went through a great effort to reduce our cost in 2015. 2016, you'll see just some costs that we have no control over with health insurance and additional personnel taking health insurance that, our bottom line dollar, there wasn't much we could control with that. So if you take a look at the revenue, and you'll see the revenue there is without the subsidy from the general fund. That's just the reimbursement for the areas that we take care of, that $8,000, and the expenses, that there's a deficit each and every year, and it's continuing to grow. The total deficit estimated after 2016 will be a total of $537,000 in that 6-year period, which averages out to about $90,000 a year. I spoke about some of the cost-saving efforts that we have gone through in 2015 to really try to transform our budget and make it, as cost-effective as possible. So I'm going to go over kind of some of the things we did. One was utilizing time more effectively by changing staff scheduling, really evaluating all the positions within the park and finding out what we could do to make them more effective and make them more cost-effective for us. So we've implemented some of those changes which have helped. We introduced conservation areas, which reduced our fuel consumption, reduced staff time, reduced our need for maintenance and supplies. We've installed energy-efficient equipment such as hand dryers at the lodge and the community center, reducing our paper cost. We've changed our custodial needs, small things from going from liquid soap to foam soap. I know that sounds silly, but it's over the life expectancy of that, it saves a lot of money. We did a major overhaul of lighting to LED, changing out over 200 lights at the lodge and the community center. We updated plumbing infrastructure to reduce winterization process. A lot of our facilities don't have heating, so we have to winterize and de-winterize twice a year, which takes 2 guys, several days. And what we're doing right now is updating that to where it's just simply one person turning a valve. So that greatly reduces our operational cost. Making physical changes to facilities to reduce the cost of repair or replacement. Anything that breaks, anything that has to be replaced, we're going to change it to something that anybody can change out. It's not expensive to replace or repair. It's something that's friendly for us to do in-house. Removing non-essential or aesthetic waste from the park grounds to reduce maintenance time. Basically removing anything that's not necessary, stuff that maybe has been there for so long that we've just kind of left it there because it's been there for so long. So kind of cleaning up the park, making sure that everything that's there is necessary. And basically, in the Parks Department since 2013 has been operating on a maintenance-only level. Not much room for improvement unless it's through TIF or grants. Our operational budget is just a maintaining budget. So where do we go? This is a 5-year projection of the revenue, and I have to admit it's a little on the conservative side, but I'd prefer when we talk about revenue to operate as though, being conservative with those numbers, not to overshoot where we might be. You'll see the total, and beneath that is total with recommended changes. I'm going to talk a little bit about those changes, and we'll talk about those a little bit more in the presentation, or farther on in the presentation as well. Some of the changes that I'm recommending are ball field fees, which our neighboring townships have already implemented, and we're several years behind. I think it's time that we start being consistent with the other townships. Introduction of fishing, open fishing, limited, but we have some ideas and solutions for introducing this fishing to the park as well as selling permits. Increased programming associated fees. We've already started that with Jumpstart Sports, RTR Fitness, ICANN Gymnastics, basically contracting out more programs and events and being able to offer more to the community. And then eliminating the rental fee for the seniors to use the community center to help them kind of offset some of their cost. The 5-year projection for expenses, again, you'll see a total at the bottom, and then you're going to see a line item beneath total, and that's the total with recommended changes. Again, something I'm going to touch upon now and a little bit later on. Included in the recommended expense changes are things that we feel are terribly important for the parks. Increased security and safety at the parks. That includes increased personnel for those items, increasing a family-friendly atmosphere, a park that's safe for all patrons. Increased programming and event personnel. We'd like to offer more programs, more events in the park, but we're going to need more people to put those events on. I think you're going to get a good taste of the bicentennial this year and see the park really come alive, and we'd like to carry on with that momentum and take that into 2017 and the years beyond that. Again, senior facility assistance and programs. The ability to offer the seniors help with programming, to offer them more, to help, take some of the burden off of the people they have running the Delhi seniors. Designating and transitioning portions of Floral Paradise Gardens into a community garden. Being able to open up such a beautiful resource for the community to be a part of. Yes, we have lots of volunteers, but to have people to be able to come up, or organizations, groups, and get their hands dirty and be a part of such an important part of Delhi would be important. And then an adjustment of some of our personnel costs to shared services. Again, with the kind of the 5-year budget history, we did a 5-year projection as far as comparing revenue and expenses. If we just go with the third line, the status quo yearly deficit, and see where we're at, you'll see after 5 years, the total deficit will be about $900,000, with an average deficit of about $180,000 per year. Same 5 years, if we're to implement the changes in our revenue and our expense categories, increased safety, increased security, increased events, programming, helping the seniors with programming, helping them offset the cost, introducing fishing permits. You're looking at a 5-year total deficit of about 1,101,000, with an average deficit of about $220,000. Really, for all those changes, you're only looking at about an average deficit of $42,000 per year in addition for everything we're talking about. It's not a huge expense per year to get all these added changes that we're talking about that really move the Parks Department in the right direction. So after presenting the numbers, there's 3 choices. 1, the Park Department reduces expenditures to balance the budget by reducing staff and services, essentially eliminating the subsidy from the general fund. 2, the Parks Department continues to be subsidized by the general fund, potentially jeopardizing future township operations or opportunities. Again, we're talking about the potential of anywhere from $900,000 to $1.1 million. I think, as far as what opportunities could be up in the future that money could be used towards is important. The Parks Department is the only subsidized department other than the zoning department. And then the third choice is additional funding through a park levy. Now, if we went in the direction of no additional revenue, changes would need to be made. There'd have to be a reduction in staffing and services provided. What are we talking about? We're talking about a reduction of staff and staff presence, reduced programming and organization of special events, limited resources for security, safety, something that we know is important at the park. Possible closing of the senior community center, not just the cost of it, but with reducing staffing, can we even run it appropriately? Increased lodge and shelter fees, closing of the spray ground, suspension of all programs, summer programs. We're bringing back the concerts this year. That would be the end of the concerts moving forward. Less frequent mowing of turf, reduction in the use of fertilizer, weed control, and mulch, no irrigation on the fields and the gardens, reduced amount of field maintenance, and the list could go on. Additional funding would provide, and I've already talked about this, but I'll reiterate some of the things we've already discussed. Again, increased assistance to the Delhi seniors and offset facility cost. This enables the township, like I said, if the day were to arise where the seniors needed help, needed somebody to come in and take over or help with programming, we could do this. Right now, we couldn't. That's an opportunity we could not provide to them. Increased activities, program, and events at the park. I think we all are going to be excited about the bicentennial and the concerts and the events going on. This will provide the Parks Department the ability to continue that on 2017, whether it's concerts or movie nights, family programming such as walking clubs or fitness class or recreational leagues. It's basically more going on in the parks for everyone. Increased safety and customer service at the park. What does this mean? We're calling it a park resource officer because I think it most closely resembles what we're doing with our local high school as far as a resource officer there. Working with the Chief Howarth and Pete, we had discussions. I think this is a very viable and fantastic solution to offering that customer service side as well as the security side to our parks, making sure that everybody that comes in there feels safe, but there's also a friendly face to answer questions, to point you in the right direction, show you where things are, where facilities are. It's a great solution that works with several departments. And allows the park department to operate with no subsidy from the general fund, allowing the general fund to operate without that burden. What additional funding would not provide? Additional funding would not include capital projects and major improvements. Our capital projects would still be funded through TIF expenditures and through grant opportunities. What are examples of capital improvements? Our pavement project is one, a new playground or a new facility or facility upgrades, a new path or trail installation, the development of the park property down at Cleves, Warsaw, and Hillside. Those are capital improvements. So what's next? If the Board of Trustees supports additional funding as recommended, then the next step is to ready a resolution for certification of a levy amount based upon the 5-year projection provided earlier in the presentation. Based on the 5-year projection, the Parks Department would recommend a 0.59 or 0.49 millage, but the board could ask for any millage that they see would be fit. We could do that, and we just have to request it from the Hamilton County Auditor. After we got those numbers back and we made a decision based on the 5-year projection on what millage to go with, we'd ready a resolution to put the park levy in the ballot no later than August 10th for the November 8th election. After that, we'd form a park levy committee, continue or start to educate the public, and hosting events to answer questions and discuss ideas and how we're moving forward with it. Any questions?
I believe there'll be a few. Trustee Oswald, you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. On page, let me get back here. On page 14, the revenue,
Yes.
and I know you weren't here then, but between the fees from 2013 to 14, it dropped from 25 to 19.7. Do you know why?
Those are mostly attributed to softball fees. I know we had a downturn in softball, but we're starting to see a resurgence in that. And that's as to why there was a drop-off in softball fees. I can't tell you particularly why, but I know that's our numbers in softball went down for a couple of years, but we're actually starting to see a resurgence in our softball. So.
Okay. And then as far as the rentals from 2012 to 13, again, I know you weren't here, but is that when the previous board implemented fees and that's what increased it?
Actually, that's when the senior center revenue came into the Parks Department. So before that, we were only dealing with the revenue from the lodge. In 2013, the revenue from both the senior center and the lodge went into that line item.
Okay. And as far as the increased safety and security personnel, you said you called him a park resource officer, I believe?
Correct.
Is that like a park ranger with arrest authority, or?
Yes, it's a Delhi Township police officer, but it's not just a detail. It's it will be a select individuals who will work with the park department, and not just one department. It'll be a relationship amongst two departments where they'll have the authority to arrest, to do anything a normal police officer will do, but they'll also have extra duties when they're in the park, as far as, being an ambassador for the parks department, getting out, introducing themselves to coaches, to families, giving directions, closing restrooms at the end of the evening. It'll be as though they are Delhi Township Police, but with just a little bit of twist with that, what we need within the Parks Department.
Just like the school resource officer for Oak Hills, it's going to have that same feel to it. They're a full police officer, but they're assigned to Oak Hills. Well, this could be a full police officer, but assigned to the park district as it, if you want to say, as their beat, as their assignment.
What's that salary range for that position?
It's the full range. It's the full range of the top of the pay of an officer is the estimate. But just as Oak Hill School, the agreement would be this would be the 32nd officer, and the Parks Department, based upon the hours that we said, 5 to 10, Monday through Friday, or Saturday.
It's 5 to 10, 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
For 8 months.
8 months. Basically put it's about $40,000 a year for the additional security for the parks. That is paying for the salary part, and the police department then would be able to utilize the other 4 months, and they'll be picking up the benefits and associated costs, such as arming the officer, the training needed for the officer, certifications, and so forth. Chief, if you want to chime in on any of this. Again, the model is just like the school resource officer. It's doing exactly what we do for Oak Hills, except this would be doing it internally for, one of our own departments.
Yeah, Pete pretty much hit the nail on the head. It is very similar. Right now, Oak Hills pays us 9 months of salary for the officer for the school, and then we get the individual, that officer, for the rest of the year. This would be a situation where I sat down and worked up the numbers with Josh, reviewed them with Pete and Josh, to the fact that an officer in 2017, if we hire an additional officer runs about $98,000, including all benefits, overtime built in. That's what it cost us. So in this case, filling out based on the amount of hours, Josh would like to see an officer in the park dedicated to the park, which we would call beat type thing. And I mean, if we have an event going on at Storywoods, it would also, or she would also drive out there and interact with the public there too. It would be where they would supply us with $40,000, and then we would pick up the rest of the cost as far as the rest of the salary, including the benefits, the PERS, the workers' comp, and everything else, up to that $98,000, what it comes out to. In return, they get an officer in the park where they request 7 days a week, eight months out of the year, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's flexible. You got something going on in the park on the weekend at 2 o'clock, and you'd rather have them in at 2, and we can bring them in at 2, etc. She can work with Josh on that, things like that. So I think it's a win-win for both, actually. We'll have the presence up there. It will be somebody that's an ambassador for the parks. We'll have a vested interest in what goes on in the parks, and keeping the things out that we don't want in, troubled juveniles, so forth, but also being that friendly face that people can come up to and ask questions, direct them in the right way, and so forth. With that, after the 5 hours, naturally they run a 9.5-hour shift, so we get them for 4.5 hours. Plus, after that 8 months, we get them for 4 months, where we can utilize our services too as a regular police officer. So, and kind of tie the business district into it too, where they can patrol heavily up there. Yes, sir.
So for your 5-year projection at the last budget hearings in November, you said you were good to go.
Mm-hmm.
It looked good. We're talking about bringing on those 2 new officers.
Mm-hmm.
You would essentially were bringing on a third, even though you're being reimbursed $40,000. You still
Right.
pick up $50,000. What does
Right.
that do to the 5-year projection?
That's one thing that we had discussed, that before I committed to this, that we had to do and make sure we put those into the spreadsheets to make sure it doesn't affect us. I could confidently say without 100% right now that it's not going to affect us, that it wouldn't affect our 5-year levy. That we could assume this cost and we would be fine, especially with the $40,000 coming to us. but without totally committing to that, and I know we have a little time, so I didn't do it with them. We just met on Monday. I haven't plugged those numbers in, but certainly can have them to Pete within a day or two. Just about 15 minutes, plug it in and spit it out, but I don't foresee it being any issue.
Last year, when we did that crackdown in the parks, I think you did it for a week.
Yeah.
Did we pay overtime for that?
Yeah, it's time and a half, and I also did provide them the amount in the cost if we would do the times that he's wanting, basically 5 days a week, 8 months, 5 hours a day, 7 days a week. It came out to time and a half. If we just stayed how we've been doing it, came out to $60,480. So
40,000.
versus the 40,000 for the same thing.
It's really 98.
I'm sorry.
It's really 98. Then.
Right, but we're getting more for the difference because we got an extra officer that's going to be out there 4.5 hours a day on our shift, utilizing where we need it, and also 4 months out of the year. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I think, let me double check. Oh, 0.49 millage. What is that for a $100,000 house?
We don't have that number yet. Our best guess is about $20, somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Sturts?
Nope, touched on what I was asking.
Okay. I have one question, couple questions actually, Josh. The last time we did approve a park levy, do you know what the number of acres we were responsible for at that time versus what we're responsible for now? Because if I remember, we've had some pretty significant increases as far as green space that we are currently responsible for, that we're covering with the same amount of money from 10 years ago? Longer than that?
Well, not
Mike?
2000. You're talking 2005
Yes.
versus 2005. Okay.
Versus 2005, I'd have to go back and get that exact number for you. I was going to say, since 2013, there's a couple small areas that we take care of now in the newly acquired property.
Well, that number says how efficient you have been at covering that increase and the responsibility of the green space in the parks with the same amount of money. And, you know, if you just look at it that way, and then the subsidy for the other operating pieces. The one thing that I like what I read is you're only talking really about, number one, is the security, because that's always been an issue for us, is the security in the park. And if we can work this park resource officer out, I think that's going to have a huge impact on the safety level inside the park. So that was one of my first objectives at looking at anything more in the park. I know you and I laughed, but I said, I'm not going to spend more money up there until we can stop the vandalism and the destruction in the park, and I think this is a good start. On that millage, I really think we should submit for more than just one amount, and then when we get that number back, if we could break that number down into exactly what you've identified as to what you want to do with this and how each one of those affect the cost, okay? Yep. So, between Pete and Josh, if you could come up with maybe at least one more option, let's look at those. Okay. Also, on expense, who's going to stock the lake when we have all these people pulling the fish out?
Actually, we are monitoring that. Our fish numbers are pretty good. We could probably do a catch and release for most of them, but when we see certain species numbers increase, we could do something where, you know, if you catch this type of fish, you can take it home with you. If you catch this type of fish, throw it back in. That will help us balance out the numbers based on our fish population.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all I had then.
And I had one
Chief?
thing.
Yeah.
The only other thing, and we discussed, there are days where it just rains and there's nothing going on in the park. Games are canceled and everything seems good. I don't want people to think this officer is going to be sitting in the park with nobody in there if we have this type of situation, this type of setup. So they would be detailed to the business district, where that would basically be their beat, that we'd always have that officer up there. Any kind of shoplifters, anything like that, would make the arrest and transport downtown and so forth. So it's kind of collaborate between the business corridor there and inside the park. So
Good. All right.
If If you want to vandalize, do it on rainy days.
We'll lock the bathrooms up so they
Don't
can't
have to
get in
offer
there.
that tip.
That's what I heard.
We'll still be in there, but you just don't know when and where. So,
Don't give them no ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Well-
Well, thank you. I think we'll have a chance to go over all this and probably have additional questions for you, Josh.
Thank
and-
you.
And Chief.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
The ideal, if I may, President CV, the idea part of this is, we can, hopefully, maybe we can come back to you next meeting or so. I'd like to maybe, try to get the certifications to the auditor, what we'd like to see. Even giving them one certification, we can give them another number. But once we know what the value of 1 mil is, basically,
Right.
then we can put it in a calculator and figure out just about anything else we want. But once we have that number, then the idea is if the board would, after we answer more questions and, whatever else we need to do, it would be great if, and I think you would see why I'm asking this, is that if we could possibly have a decision to whether we put this on the levy maybe into May or very early in June for that decision, only that so that it's final, that this decision as far as the voters are going to get to decide, because starting right away in June is going to be our first concert in the park, and going to be, that way right away the, volunteers and Josh and all that can start getting the word out, and people can then start experiencing the park with that in mind, that, hey, in November there's going to be a decision, and if you like what you're seeing, if we fail in this summer, if we fail to do a good job in providing a good time in the parks, then maybe we don't deserve to be passing a levy. But I think that what they're going to see is that this bicentennial and the concerts in the park and everything else is going to be successful, so that when it comes to November, they're not going to have too far to look back or remember back and say, man, that was just awesome. I felt secure. I felt safe. I felt the concerts in the park and so forth, so that they can, then say, well, I want to support that because I want to see even more of that. So, timing is kind of everything. We do have, as we laid out, till August. The latest is, beginning of August for the November. But if the earlier the better, that we'll have more time, especially during the summer with all the events, that we can officially tell people, this is, remember having this good time in November. So that's.
Well, I know that Fiscal Officer Luby and the Financial Advisory Board have been living these numbers for some time and have reviewed them very closely. Did you want to have a question before I go to Pete? 'Cause
Yeah, please. What was the last levy millage that we went for?
0.75.
0.75. So because of his efficiency and the operations, we were able to make it less.
That and the time frame ended up. It was a quandary that you kind of got stuck in. That it ended up being, that levy was almost touted as being a 10-year levy, which we're only doing 5. But the efficiencies that we've had, the reorganization of staff, everything else he mentioned, yes, we're able to bring the numbers down.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Feitner, our FAB representative for the Parks Department, who is a true numbers guy.
Thank you, trustees. Thank you, Cheryl. Just wanted to present the facts that the Financial Advisory Board has reviewed the park 5-year budget projection as presented to us by Josh Torbeck. To the best of our knowledge, the 5-year projection appears reasonable, with the assumption that the park operations and revenues maintain the status quo. So the FAB board was very happy with just looking at the numbers, assuming everything stayed the same.
Okay, all right. So you're in agreement with good stewardship of what they've had so far and going forward?
Good stewardship is putting it very mildly. It's more great stewardship. The changes that have been made in the park from the financial perspective of reducing costs through, Josh already enumerated many of them, but they truly have had an effect in reducing expenditures over there.
Great. All right. Thank you, Pete. Thanks for the recommendation. Okay. Trustee correspondence, Trustee Oswald.
Just want to thank the Delhi Business Association for the Easter egg hunt on Saturday. My son, who's 2 years old, went to 4 Easter egg hunts in 3 days. That was one of them. Great weather, great turnout. Professional photographer who I believe thought Josh Torbeck and my wife were married at one point. She didn't tell me that whole story. But thanks again, Delhi Business Association. Do a great job every year, and I know a lot of people enjoyed it.
Trustee Sturts.
Many residents have been calling into the Public Works and talking with Mr. Rippinger about Devil's Backbone between Cleves Warsaw and Rapid Run, and they want it repaired. So I contacted Hamilton County engineer Ted Hubbard and spoke with him. It is on their plan for 2017, so we wanted the residents to know that. Even though we think it is in dire straits, it's not as bad as some of the other streets throughout Hamilton County. Many residents don't realize that that's not a township maintained road. It is a Hamilton County maintained road. So I have been given the promise that if there is extra money from the projects slated for 2016, it will go towards our project that we really want to see done. Also, Engineer Hubbard said if any resident has any questions, he'd be glad to take them himself. They can call him. He's also willing to come out here and talk to us to explain the process. But it has been looked at. It is on their radar. It is on the calendar for 2017.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing tonight. Report from the fiscal officer, Mr. Luby.
At this time, we'll go ahead and do the public opening of the bids received for the Delhi Township Street Rehabilitation and Repair Project, number 2016-A. The first one is Adlita Construction. The total bid price is $1,553,266.46. Next one is Barrett Paving and Materials, Inc. The bid total is $1,583,120.15. The last one is Pruce Construction. The bid price is $1,761,216.38. That's the last of the bids.
Okay, then, Mr. Luby, could we have the motion, please?
Motion 2016-52, acknowledge the receipt of and forward the bids of the Delhi Township Rehabilitation and Repair Project, number 2016A, to the Public Works Department for review and determination of the lowest and most responsive and responsible bidder.
I've moved motion 2016-052 to acknowledge the receipt of and forward the bids for review and determination of the lowest and most responsive and responsible bidder.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes. We have no public hearings this evening, but I do have a report from departments. Mr. Landrum?
Yes, on, what date, what was that, a week ago Friday or a week ago Thursday? We attended a meeting and where I wanted to present this. The township has won the Frankie Ferris, the second Community Planning Award. Let me read this. It's Delhi Township Plan the Pike, Delhi Strategic Redevelopment Plan, development of a plan category. For a West Side community that prides itself on tradition and family ties, ensuring that young generations continue to return home is paramount to its future success. Delhi Township's Plan to Pike seeks to do just that. It also seeks to create a new environment that will encourage more empty nesters to remain, and it focuses on creating amenities to further attract Mount St. Joseph University students to claim the Pike as their entertainment destination. Because of Plan to Pike, the Delhi Pike Business District is now poised to transform into a thriving center of life with a variety of housing options, shopping and dining destinations, and public open space connected by a walkable environment. Awarded March 11th, 2013, presented by the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. So I wanted, although Trustee Seavey was there to accept on behalf of the board, I wanted to make sure I presented this to the entire board it's for the decisions and the leadership that the Board of Trustees have made to move the township forward. So congratulations, trustees.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a lovely event, and we certainly were honored and privileged to represent the hard works of the Delhi Township group on Plan the Pike. So we accepted it with all graciousness, and there it is. There's the start. Now, Greg back there, Mr. DeLong, when's the next plaque? 1 year.
1 year.
Okay.
We're going to hold you to
We'll
that.
win it every year. I have one more additional thing. Today, Dave, our law director here, and I met with Hamilton County Environmental Services. For many years, we have the noise monitoring at the sisters at the house that has been going on, and CVG they contract out with a third-party entity that does quarterly noise monitoring level. We get the reports. We send them to our representatives that represent us, Dusty Rhodes and Ed Capel, who represent us on about the noise. And who? Okay. Oh, okay. Noise abatement, yeah. And with that, the county, for the entire time, for what, 20-some years? Has it been 20 years? Been a very long time. They've been doing more or less a duplicate sound monitoring. Now, the difference is, instead of doing quarterly, they have old equipment that's been there since 20 years, for which we have an agreement with the county that I think it was the city did 20% for the equipment, we did 20%, the sisters did 20%, and the county did 40%, to pay for about $25,000 worth of equipment. Our agreement with the county was more or less for the purchase of the equipment. The reason for, Dave can go into, if you want, real details, but why there was a duplicate services and felt like it was being needed. We haven't really utilized the information that's coming from this information. After reviewing it, it's kind of hard to tell from equipment that is run on 24 hours a day and they get daily readings. The monitoring that's done quarterly, they compare those sound readings with incoming and outgoing flights, because they know the airport knows we had a flight at this time, we had a flight at this time, we had a flight at this time. So they're more specifically measuring when planes are coming to what the noise level is. The county's version of it that's on all the time hears noise of a police truck or a fire truck going by, or a police car going by, somebody mowing their grass, somebody lightning storm or thundering, all the noises. One thing that we can say, and that the county said today, is that basically, over all these years, they have not noticed anything significant. Actually, after the last reading, their noise was, what did he say? Theirs was lower or higher? I forget. The airports was higher.
Airports was higher when they did side by side.
Side by side.
Normally what the county does on their monitoring at the Mount location is continuous. So it tends to be higher.
Right. because it's measuring all that non-airport noise. Basically, let me bottom line it for you. We have very old equipment that would probably cost over $20,000 to replace, since the original cost $25,000. That's what David said. Well, it costs $25,000. It's probably more than 20 this, now if we replaced it. But basically, there's no statutory, there's nothing in ORC, and actually we have no agreement with the county for them to continue this process. They're having staff time. They're having it's just they're using their general fund dollars to do the processing, and there's just no reason why unless we felt for some reason that there was a reason that we needed to continue to have duplicate services. The Sisters of Charity are okay with the county to stop. Cincinnati stopped at Sailor Park, had equipment there that was removed back in 2010. So I'm going to take it that that's an okay with them, since their equipment's already been removed since 2010. Basically put, the county is, as a cost-saving measure, just does not feel like it can continue to provide this service. I talked with the sisters today, with their representative, their CFO, and basically, we have an agreement with CVG, and so do the sisters. Our agreement basically is with CVG for them to keep doing noise monitoring checks, basically, reports. So they're going to continue to do that. And I talked to the sisters when I said, well, if at any time we feel like their equipment's wrong, or there's been a change and it doesn't look like it, or the third party that they hired, so they're not internally doing this noise monitoring themselves, like with having their janitor go out there and say, does it sound loud? No, they're hiring a professional firm to do this. At any time that the township or the sisters would object to, I would say that we would have a right to say, hey, something's wrong here. We definitely could enter into discussions with CVG. I don't see that as being an issue, though. It is a third-party entity that they're contracting with. They've actually changed entities. I think they probably bid it out like anybody else and see who can do it for the cheapest monitoring and provide the good service. So basically, we're here today just to provide you information. We don't need an answer from you today. If you guys need to talk it out, in case anybody in the public, what I wanted to stress is that it is a duplicate service, meaning it's already being monitored. We can't really compare it side by side because they're being monitored in two different ways. One's a quarterly thing where they bring the equipment, measure it for a few days, measure that by filtering out the times that they know the flights are coming in, so that they can measure the actual airplane noise and not the lawnmowers and the police cars and that kind of stuff. So that's another thing, that they're really not side-by-side comparisons. And basically that the noise monitoring will still continue through CVG, and does provide to the Sisters of Charity and to the township a quarterly report. So I didn't want the residents to say, nobody's watching the airport or noticing the noise volumes or anything like that. That will still continue. It just won't be a duplicate service, and it'll be less of a cost to the county as far as expenses to one of their departments that won't have to, number one, update equipment, number two, won't have to use manpower. The only thing the county did offer to do was that one of the important things is, and I'm sure CVG would require this in their agreement with whoever they're a contract with, but that is to make sure that the equipment needs certified, if you want to say once a year, updated, calibrated, to make sure that the whoever is doing that work for them, the county said that they would be more than glad to annually get the certification of calibration or whatever you want to call that, to make sure the equipment has been checked correctly.
This doesn't in any way interfere with the noise abatement group, does it? No, they will still
Right. And I
be in existence.
You're talking about the members that your board appoints?
Right.
Yeah, that's all under the settlement agreements.
Okay. Okay, because right now, coincidentally, I've had two people complain about freight airplanes. Okay, and I've actually taken it to one of our members of the Noise Abatement Board. It's, I don't want to name the offenders, but I will just say they're freight airlines, and they're coming in pretty low. And if a resident asks me, where do they take that complaint? Is anything changed procedurally with what they should do?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Any of those issues would be dealt with under the settlement agreements, not under this other agreement with the county.
Okay.
To my best recollection, this agreement that we had with the county, the sisters, and the city, or I should say not we participated with the county in an agreement with those other entities, but it was in about 94. I think it either grew out of some suspicion, or I think more likely grew out of the expansion of the airport when they added the other runway.
Okay. Because it's interesting, I haven't received any comments about passenger airlines, but these freight airlines look like they could be landing at the university. So,
Well, they're back.
The freight is back.
They were gone for a while.
Moved from Wilmington to,
and
I
now
think
they're,
that's what everybody's hearing more now.
well, there are some places where you can't even talk to the person on the phone. The plane is so low and the noise is so loud. And I see Mr. and Mrs. Hepp in the background shaking their head in agreement, so they know what I'm talking about.
well, that, like Dave said, that process won't change as far as that goes. The only reports that group has been getting is the report from the third-party entity from CVG. So they haven't been receiving, actually the county said that, they haven't done anything with the numbers that they have been, except for looking at them themselves and kind of trying to compare a little bit with the CVG report, but they hadn't even sent it to us or the university or sisters or anybody in over 10 years. So it's kind of data that's being collected that is like, okay, well, why are we still doing this? Is it still needed? And that's the conversations that they had with us today. It doesn't change that the fact that CVG is going to continue through the agreement that they have with us and the settle agreement and with the sisters, that they are going to continue the monitoring. It's just a duplicate that the county is doing is what the county is asking that.
So there's still something in place. The noise abatement is still there. We still have a place to go if we have noise complaints.
Correct.
That's, okay, all right.
And so if I can in a next meeting, if I can just reiterate in case you guys hear from any residents or anything over the next 2 weeks, we can bring this up at next department report and ask if there's any other further discussion on it so we can draw that to a conclusion.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, reading of the resolutions, Mr. Luby.
Resolution 2016-34, resolution approving purchase order obligations incurred on behalf of the township by the township administrator, authorizing payment of certain purchase order obligations and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with the second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with a second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-35, resolution declaring certain property no longer needed for public use, obsolete and unfit for the use acquired, authorizing sale by internet auction and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. Landrum?
There are two vehicles on the surplus for auction. One is a 2003 Ford Explorer, which was a chase vehicle for the fire department. It's definitely beyond its usable life. It's been replaced already with when we went down in staffing from having 2 assistant chiefs to 1 assistant chief. We are we equipped one of the F-150s with the correct lighting on it, so that's what we're using in its place. The other item is a 2001 Ford Taurus, the station wagon. That will be available later this year, so we wanted to go ahead and get that on surplus, so when we are it is available to be sold, it will be. And then the next are two TVs that are the old analog big box screen TVs that, not big box, they're 32-inch, but the big tube TVs that are now analog and everything's requiring to be digital.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-36, resolution declaring certain items of personal property unfit for the use acquired, that the items have no value, authorizing disposal or salvage thereof, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution, Mr. Landrum?
Now, this information is for on items that will be either recycled or destroyed that, cannot be really sold. So anywhere from bookshelves from Public Works to out-of-date SCBA bottles from the fire department, some recyclable laser jet printers, and some very old things from the IT department that will be sent to recycle, and then as well as multiple items from uniforms, some old shirts and things like that from the police department, some stop sticks, and so basically from those departments, and the list is provided.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-37, resolution setting staffing levels and establishing pay rates during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2016, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Again, Mr. Landrum?
This is the only thing changing on our staffing summary is the lodge and basically the senior center custodians. Josh made mention that how we man events at the lodge or at the community senior center. We're moving it from 7 to 10. We're not really upping the budget unless we get crazy with events that we need it, and then they're paid events, so it'll pay for itself. But what happens is we have multiple events, and then these people are very part-time, and sometimes they just can't, the scheduling doesn't work. So we're putting a couple extra people on staff as far as so we can have the flexibility of making sure we have enough people to cover events.
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-38, resolution authorizing service agreement with Pro Air Inc. for service to the SCBA refill station at the fire headquarters, authorizing the signature by the Township Administrator and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2016-39, resolution acknowledging donation from and entering into a sponsor agreement with La Roses, Inc. for the football athletic field scoreboard during 2016, authorizing the Township Administrator to execute the agreement and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
I second the adoption of this resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with second reading.
I second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Resolution passes. I have no citizens signed in this evening, so announcement of community events. Again, Mr. Luby.
The Great Parks of Hamilton County public listening sessions will be Wednesday, April 6, 2016, from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the Sailor Park Recreation Center at 6720 Home City Ice Avenue. Thursday, April 14th, 2016, from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at Green Township Nathaniel Green Lodge at 6394 Wesselman Road. The Western Wildlife Corridor, Delhi Heritage Hike from Native Americans to Floral Paradise will be Saturday, April 9th, 2016, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. It will be at Bender Mountain. Delhi Historical Society, Native American occupation of Delhi Township from 6000 BC to 1650 AD will be Monday, April 11th, 2016, at 7 p.m. at the Delhi Park Lodge at 5125 Foley Road. Delhi Branch Library Grandparenting in the 21st Century will be Tuesday, April 12th, 2016, at 7 p.m. at the Delhi Branch Library at 5095 Foley Road. Delhi Historical Society Family History Scanning Stations will be Thursday, April 14th, 2016, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Bailey Place Wellness and Fitness Center at 401 Farrell Court. And also on Monday, April 25th, 2016, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Delhi Senior Community Center at 647 Neeb Road. The Clean Up Delhi Day will be Saturday, May 7th, 2016, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. You'll meet at the Delhi Senior Community Center at 647 Neeb Road. Delhi Township Parks and Recreation Spring and Summer Programs. The spring programs will be from April 12th to May 18th, and the summer programs will be through June and July at the Delhi Parks. Also want to mention the Delhi Township Bicentennial Cookbook. We're now accepting recipes for Community Cookbook through May 27th. Recipe submissions forms are available for pickup at Brosey Tours, the Delhi Administration Building, and the Delhi Senior Community Center, or they can be submitted online. More information about the Community Cookbook and other bicentennial events can be found at www.delhitownship2016.org. The public is encouraged to participate in the events and programs being offered as part of this year-long community celebration.
Thank you, Mr. Luby. We do have cause for executive session this evening, so may I have the motion?
Motion 2016-53 to retire to executive session to consider the compensation of a public employees.
I've moved motion 2016-053 to retire to executive session to consider the compensation of public employees.
I second the motion to retire to executive session.
Mr. Luby, please call the roll.
Mrs. Seavey.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald.
Yes.
Mrs. Sturts.
Yes.
Motion passes. We will adjourn now to the executive session. So this concludes this open session of this meeting, and the next regularly scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, April the 13th, 2016. Hope to see you then. Thanks, everyone.